Your abusive ex just met the Mafia. When Arya's drunk boyfriend came looking for her to finish what he started, he didn't find her. Instead, he found 3 armed men working for the city's most dangerous syndicate. Leon Varley didn't just hide Arya. He showed her abuser security footage of every hit and every threat, promising to utterly destroy him. Now she's living in a penthouse under 24/7 protection. But in the criminal underworld, protection always comes with a lethal price.
Yo, picture this absolute madness, guys. The night Arya's entire life goes up in flames, she is hiding in a dingy restaurant bathroom, literally dabbing fresh blood off her lip. She's practicing her fake customer service smile, totally clueless that the absolute unit of a stranger sitting at table 7 is about to read her soul. And spoiler alert, her brother goes totally ghost before sunrise. Engaging with this mystery boss drags her into an unhinged underworld where cash is trash and survival is the only currency. Stick with me, because we are unpacking this wild ride together. Real talk though, we have all had to slap on a fake smile and hide our own bruises to get through a rough day, right? Anyway, her toxic boyfriend, Marcus, made sure the cut was not deep. Bro was a total coward, hitting her just enough to hurt, but leaving zero evidence. Listen, makeup can only cover up so much real-life trauma. You know, Arya is scraping the absolute bottom of her high-end concealer, the only stuff that doesn't just smear and make her look like a zombie. She's frantically digging through her bag, hands shaking, trying to hide this massive purple shiner blooming under her eye. She's telling herself to just survive 2 more hours. Grab those tips and sneak home before Marcus goes full goblin mode on a bottle of liquor. Suddenly, the door swings open, blasting her with the sounds of clinking silver and snobby rich people. Another waitress completely ignores her and dips. Honestly, Arya prefers the cold shoulder. Life lesson right here. Sometimes flying under the radar is your best defense mechanism. In a room full of elitist snobs buying perfection, being completely invisible is the only way to survive. These ultra-rich VIPs literally treat servers like background NPCs in their Flex Fest. When Arya pushes through the doors, the dining room looks like a movie set for the 1%. We're talking blinding crystal chandeliers, pristine tables, and air that smells like generational wealth. She tucks her chin and slaps on her fake customer service mask. Table 7 is now occupied, so she grabs a pitcher of water and goes into full autopilot mode. Good evening, she starts, but the words literally choke in her throat. Guys, the dude sitting there isn't even looking at the menu. He is scanning her like a barcode. It's not that creepy stare guys usually give. This man's gaze is heavy, calculated, and locked dead onto her face. He's rocking a tailored dark suit that costs more than her rent for a decade. Remember, true power doesn't need to be loud to make you freeze. It wasn't the designer drip that had her heart doing backflips. It was his terrifying, absolute stillness. He's watching her the way a top-tier detective analyzes a crime scene. I will give you a moment with the menu, she whispers, instantly pivoting to dip out. Wait. The command is super quiet, but it literally glues her shoes to the floor. She turns around. What happened to your face? Boom. The question hits her like an ice bucket challenge. Her hand violently flinches up to cover her bruised cheek. Nothing. I am fine, she lies. He drops the menu. I asked a simple question. Who hurt you? Listen, you and I both know how insanely rare it is for someone to actually see through our fake smiles. Most people just take the easy lie and run, but this boss refuses to back down. She awkwardly stammers about getting his drink, but he just stares right through her soul. Bring me your oldest Bordeaux. Guys, Arya practically sprints away. By the time she hits the bar, her hands are shaking so bad, She presses them against the cold oak just to stop vibrating. She's internally screaming. Who gave this guy the right to rip away her emotional armor? The bartender clocks her panic. You good? She gives a weak nod. Table 7 requested you specifically, he mutters, sliding over a bottle that costs a car payment. Arya grabs the glasses, legs feeling like concrete. Back at the table, Mystery Man is firing off rapid-fire Italian on his phone. Total Mafia vibes. He hangs up and tells her, just one glass. Then he asks her name, Arya. He tests the word out, then drops his own. I am Leon. Honestly, life lesson here. When a dangerously powerful stranger takes a sudden interest in your trauma, your truest instinct is usually to just run and hide. I own 20% of this restaurant, Leon flexes. Sit down. Bro, Arya's stomach drops to the earth's core. She perches on the edge of the chair, ready to bolt like a startled cat. Leon takes this agonizingly slow sip of his wine. How long has someone been hitting you? She violently flinches. I do not know what you mean, she deflects, but Leon isn't having it. I have seen people hide their pain. You are doing decent, but not good enough. Boyfriend? Husband? Arya snaps back. Why do you even care? His eyes go pitch black. Because I do not like seeing valuable things broken. Valuable? Like she's some cracked porcelain doll? She stands up so fast the chair screeches. I need to check my tables, she stammers, throwing herself back into the chaos of her shift. Take note, chat. Never let anyone reduce your human worth to just being a damaged object they want to fix. But you literally cannot outrun a shadow. The entire shift, Arya feels Leon's intense gaze locked onto her like a sniper. He doesn't even eat his insanely expensive food. He just nurses that wine, biding his time. Let's pause right here. You and I. Have you ever felt that horrible creeping dread when you realize your safety is expiring? By 10:30, the restaurant empties out. Arya is cleaning a table when her phone violently buzzes. It's Marcus. Where are you? The text instantly chokes her out. She frantically types back, saying she'll be home by 11:30. His reply is chilling. Make it 11. Arya closes her eyes, totally defeated, because being late means absolute pain. When she opens her eyes again, Leon is standing right there 3 feet away. You are afraid of whoever you are going home to, he states. It isn't a question. It's a terrifying, cold, hard fact. Arya's voice is shaking hard. You do not know anything about me. Leon just stares. I know you are running out of time. Boom. He pulls a sleek card from his designer jacket. This is my number when you need help, not if, but when. Call it. Arya looks at the card like it's a literal explosive device. I do not need help, she lies. Yes, you do. Leon steps close, and she catches a whiff of his cologne, mixed with something cold and metallic. It literally smells like straight gunpowder. When you finally admit the truth, I will be the only call you make. Then he just ghosts into the night. Look, the biggest life lesson here. Sometimes the universe sends a lifeline right before the storm hits. Cut to 11:20. She's at her beat-up car, and Marcus calls. His voice is heavily slurred. Bro is completely hammered, which means a guaranteed night of absolute violence. 10 minutes. I will be there in 10 minutes. She begs. You better be, Marcus snaps, and the line dies. Arya is full-on street racing through the slick roads, her mind completely scrambled by Leon. What is scarier here? That this Mafia boss noticed her bruises, or that a tiny piece of her wanted to say yes to his dark salvation? She parks outside her nasty apartment building, taking a deep breath to brace herself. When she gets upstairs, the front door is unlocked. Massive red flag, guys. Inside, the television blasts a cold blue light, and Marcus is slumped over with an empty whiskey bottle. He slowly stands up, stumbling. Took you long enough, he growls. I am sorry. Work was slammed, she stammers. You think I am stupid? He barks, lunging at her. Always remember, chat. Staying with a toxic person does not fix them. It just destroys you. The room absolutely reeks of cheap whiskey and insane, unearned jealousy. Marcus' fingers digs brutally into Arya's arm. You guys know this exact vibe, that fragile, insecure anger that's completely terrifying. Without warning, he slaps her so hard her head snaps to the side. Fresh blood fills her mouth, aggravating all her old bruises. Suddenly, her phone starts ringing, slicing through the heavy silence. Marcus violently snatches it. It's Ethan, literally just her brother. But to Marcus's paranoid brain, everyone is a threat. He puts it on speaker, and Ethan's frantic, panicked voice begs her to listen to him. Marcus just laughs and shoves her down to the floor. Let me drop a hard life lesson right here. The people who scream the loudest about loyalty and respect are almost always the exact same ones actively breaking your spirit into pieces. Marcus is literally mocking the panic in Ethan's voice, totally dripping with arrogant toxicity. But Ethan's voice just drops. It gets slow and super heavy, filled with this terrifying finality that absolutely freezes your blood. He tells Arya he's so sorry, that he tried to fix everything, and then, click, dead air. The dial tone rings out like a literal funeral bell. Marcus sneers and tosses the phone like it is a joke. He's too dense to get it, but Arya feels the absolute dread deep in her soul. She immediately dials back, straight to voicemail. Full panic mode activates. She grabs her bag to bolt, but Marcus tries to play prison warden and grabs her wrist. Here is the reality check. The sheer terror of losing family will instantly turn a victim into an absolute survivor. Arya violently rips her arm free. By the time Marcus hits the stairs, she's already speeding into the night. Arya is gripping that steering wheel so hard her knuckles are pure white. She's flying blind into the sketchy industrial district. That shady part of town where nobody ever asks questions. She pulls up to Ethan's building, and the front door is completely busted open like a broken jaw. She sprints up the concrete stairs, barely breathing. When she hits the third floor, Ethan's apartment door is wide open, and inside is absolute carnage. We're talking furniture, shredded pieces, and shattered glass covering the floor. Whoever came here completely destroyed his life. She creeps into the wreckage, whispering his name into the terrifying silence. Then she reaches the bedroom. The mattress is flipped, and right there on the wall is a massive, smeared, bloody handprint. Her knees literally buckle. Truth bomb, guys. Sometimes the physical proof of your worst nightmare is just too heavy for your body to hold up. Look at this chaos, guys. Arya is barely holding the door frame, the room spinning. When her phone buzzes, unknown caller, she answers with shaking hands. The guy on the line, ice cold. No yelling, just that creepy professional calm. He drops a bomb. Her brother Ethan tried to rip off the worst people in the city for $50,000. She does not have that kind of cash, and this creep knows it, hinting at using her other assets to pay the tab. They are keeping Ethan as insurance. The call drops, leaving her in a wrecked room with blood drying on the walls. The lesson? Trouble never knocks politely. It kicks down your door and takes everything. So trauma completely wipes her memory. Next thing she knows, she snaps out of it under the harsh neon lights of sketchy parking lot at 2 in the morning. And what is she holding? A business card for Leon Valley, the mob boss who warned her this exact nightmare was coming. She has zero clue how dark this guy's world gets, or what insane price he will slap on his help. For all she knows, Leon is worse than the cartel holding Ethan. But she is backed into a corner, so she dials the number. Leon's deep voice hits the line, and Arya completely breaks down. She spills the abuse, the ransom, the literal blood on the floor. It goes to show, when you hit absolute rock bottom, even the devil starts looking like an angel. Stick with me here, because this is where it gets crazy. The silence on the phone is totally suffocating. Leon finally speaks, asking where she is. He promises to fix the mess, but his voice stays terrifyingly chill as he drops his absolute bombshell of a catch. If he goes to war for her, she belongs to him until the massive debt is cleared. Belong, that is a massive red flag. But she is so drained, the fear does not even register. She whispers her surrender. 20 minutes later, a slick black SUV rolls up and two heavily armed guys step out. Pure underworld muscle. They tap her window and she unlocks the car. Remember this. Desperation will always make you open doors you should absolutely keep locked. Is basically like walking to her own funeral. Her legs are total jelly. The ride smells like expensive leather and serious danger. They drive her out of the slums straight into the wealthy waterfront district. They pull into a secret bunker garage, ride a VIP elevator up, and step into a mega penthouse that screams Mafia money. Glass walls looking over the dark city. Leon Varley is standing by the window. Like a mob boss king, he snaps his fingers, and the guards vanish. Arya just stands there, clutching her cheap purse, completely out of place. Here is a brutal reality check. Sometimes the only safe place left to hide is just a much prettier, much more expensive cage. Leon slides up to her like a total apex predator and demands the truth. Arya spills the entire tragedy. Her brother's stupid gambling, the shady schemes, the huge ransom. Leon does not even blink. But then, plot twist, he drops the ultimate nuke. Ethan did not just rob randos, he robbed the Volkov Mafia family. Bro, the Volkovs literally run the entire underworld. You cross them, you catch a permanent dirt nap. Leon pours a scotch and tells her straight up that Ethan is probably already dead, and now the mob is coming for her. Arya cries, realizing her life is totally over. The truth hurts, but learning to face the music before the band starts playing is the only way you survive a nightmare like this. Let us pause and unpack this boss move together. Leon takes a slow sip of his drink. He has the cash to fix this. But a guy like him does nothing for free. So why step in? Pure flex. The Volkovs are rivals, and he wants to claim Arya because he can. He drops his terms, and they are insane. She has to live locked in his fortress and blindly trust his methods. In exchange, he will save her useless brother, erase her toxic ex, and block the mob. It is the ultimate deal with the devil, served up with $1 billion view. She locks eyes with him and agrees. Leon just flashes a crazy cold smirk. Life lesson right here. If you make a deal with a shark, do not complain when you have to swim in deep water. Leon walks her to her new room, and bro, it is massive. Way colder and different than the tiny dump she shared with Marcus. Arya is stunned, staring at the huge windows, looking down on the city like she is trapped in a glass box. Leon casually says there is a brand new wardrobe waiting, and she is never going back to her ex. That boss tone he uses makes her stomach drop. She asks what he is going to do to Marcus, but Leon just taps his Rolex, tells her to sleep, and drops a dark warning about security cameras. The heavy door clicks shut. Now she is isolated. It proves a harsh truth. Trading a familiar cheap problem for an expensive brand new one does not make you free. It just upgrades your shiny new trap. She swapped a rusty cage for a solid gold one, and the panic is officially setting in. Her chest gets crazy tight. She bolts into the luxury bathroom, cranks the shower to boiling hot, and lets the roaring water hide the fact that she is totally breaking down. She stands under the firewater, until her brain finally shuts off. Later, rocking a borrowed silk gown, she stares at the ceiling thinking she will never sleep again. But spoiler alert, total burnout always wins. She passes out, only to get ripped awake by the morning sun. For one sweet second, she forgets everything. Then reality hits her like a freight train. Keep this in mind. You can run from your problems all night, but the sun always brings the bill right to your door. She checks her phone and boom. 7 missed calls from Marcus. 12 unhinged text messages going from super angry to begging. She deletes the whole mess without even reading it. Boss move. A knock at the door. And this older lady walks in holding a massive breakfast spread. This is Elena, and she has those intense eyes of someone who has seen all the mob drama. She drops the food, saying the big boss sent it. Arya asks where Leon is, but Elena just gives her a cold look. Leon bounced at dawn and wants her dressed for a serious meeting later. Arya is too stressed to even taste the incredible food. Waiting for the other shoe to drop is always worse than the actual hit. Always protect your peace before the big storm arrives. You and I are going to unpack this next twist together. Arya opens the closet and finds crazy expensive clothes that somehow fit her perfectly. Super creepy, right? She steps into the living room, and there is this ruthless corporate shark sitting on the couch. He snaps his laptop shut and introduces himself as David Crane, Leon's personal fixer. The kind of guy who cleans up underworld messes. He points to a chair and says it is time to talk. Arya is desperate to know if Ethan is alive, but David coldly admits the rival Mafia is pushing back. He demands she spill every detail about her brother's sloppy moves. Here is a solid life tip. When a guy in a tailored suit asks about dirty laundry, you better tell the absolute truth. Arya spills whatever intel she has. She tells David about her brother showing up recently looking wrecked and begging for cash. She mentions his awful gambling habits and sketchy debts. David just types away, showing zero emotion, but when she finishes, he drops a massive bomb. Ethan was not just a gambling addict. Bro was literally working as a cash runner for the rival Mafia. Then David reveals the final twist. Ethan was supposed to drop off 80 grand in cash, but the idiot handed over an empty bag and ran off with the money. Now the mob wants their payout, plus interest. Arya goes completely pale. Take notes, guys. The toxic secrets you hide from your family are usually the exact things that end up coming back to destroy them. We are getting to the craziest part, guys. 50 grand was just the opening offer. David flexes that Leon has insane leverage over the rivals, so Arya just needs to stay hidden and never call her ex, Marcus. But there is a huge glitch. Marcus already filed a missing person report with the cops. David's eyes instantly go dead. He tells her the boss is handling Marcus. Then he drops a threat so cold it would freeze fire. He says her ex is a problem, and in the underworld, problems get permanently solved. Bro is hinting they are going to take Marcus out. David just walks away, leaving her horrified. It is a terrifying wake-up call. Sometimes the heavy hitters you run to for safety turn out to be way more lethal than the actual storm. Guys, this is absolute insanity. Arya is straight up trapped in a billionaire's cage. It might be draped in shiny marble, but it is a literal prison, and Leon holds the only key. Elena, the housekeeper, gives her the grand tour of this massive penthouse, and every single room screams dark money. She casually drops the house rules. No visitors, 0 deliveries, windows bolted shut, and a coded elevator. Arya tries to act tough, claiming she is not a captive. Elena just gives her this pitying smile that absolutely crushes her soul. Look, here is the brutal truth. We often build our own mental prisons way before some mafia boss locks the actual door. Arya is left alone, absolutely spiraling. Her mind a total blur of panic as the reality of her terrifying new life finally sinks in. So get this. Arya is staring out the window like an absolute ghost when her phone buzzes. Unknown caller. She picks up and it is Leon. He straight up orders her to be ready for dinner at 7. When she asks why, his answer is ice cold. Because I said so. Click. Major boss energy. Later, Elena drops off this insanely sleek black dress. It is the kind of expensive silk Arya used to spill drinks on as a waitress. She puts it on, feeling like a doll at a Mafia auction, and plot twist, it fits perfectly. This absolute madman figured out her exact measurements while she slept. She stares in the mirror and barely recognizes herself. You and I know this cold truth. Sometimes the hardest part of surviving is realizing you have to a complete stranger's mask just to make it through the night. The bruise on her cheek is hidden under high-end makeup. She looks flawless. Right at 7, Leon rolls in, rocking a dark suit that literally absorbs the room's light. He looks her up and down with crazy calculating eyes and whispers that she is beautiful. Arya blushes hard as he leads her to this massive terrace overlooking the harbor. Candles are flickering everywhere. It looks like a romantic date, which makes the hostage situation 10 times more terrifying. He pulls out her chair like a gentleman and pours wine that costs more than her apartment. Then he leans in and tells her to relax. Let me drop a simple lesson for us all. When a seriously dangerous man tells you to relax, that is exactly when your blood should run completely cold. He claims he will not hurt her, but Arya claps back, saying that is hardly comforting. The dude actually smirks. Then he drops the ultimate plot twist. The rival Volkov syndicate is crashing his territory, so he needs a spark to ignite a massive gang war. And guess what? Arya's own brother, Ethan, is that spark. She gasps for air, accusing him of using her brother to start a bloodbath. Leon just sips his dark wine and calls it leverage. The Volkovs think they are untouchable because they have Ethan, but Leon controls the harbor ports. He will choke their supply chain and bleed them dry before making any trades. Life teaches us early on that true power is not just having the upper hand. It is letting your enemy believe they are winning right before you absolutely crush them into dust. He looks her dead in the eye and says he will take everything. Kindness gets you nowhere. You win by being the most ruthless player. As they eat food that looks like modern art, Leon casually drops a massive nuke. He asks why she has not mentioned Marcus, her toxic ex. Her head snaps up. Leon just smirks and says the trash is handled. Marcus came looking for her, but ran straight into 3 massive Mafia enforcers who made it clear she is untouchable. Arya is terrified Marcus will snitch to the cops, but Leon just slices his steak like a surgeon. He already stole the security tapes. If Marcus breathes a word, he goes straight to a prison cell. The lesson here is a bitter pill. Sometimes, the absolute only shield you have against a monster is a much darker monster. Leon is totally chill. He calls Marcus a coward, saying guys like him always fold when a bigger boss steps up. Arya sits there, frozen, her mind an absolute battlefield. Half of her is horrified by this Mafia madness, but the other half, she feels a twisted rush of relief that her abuser is finally shaking in his boots. Leon notices her zoning out and tells her to wake up. He asks what she truly wants. She demands her brother back. But Leon pushes harder, demanding to know her own endgame. He studies her like the ultimate puzzle, telling her she has spent her life hiding, but she is absolutely not weak. Her survival instinct is rare currency. Here is a heavy truth for us all. The deepest, most painful traumas often forge the exact armor you need to survive tomorrow. She asks how she could be valuable to a boss like him. Leon says his syndicate needs people with absolute loyalty. Guys, he is offering her a seat at his Mafia table. He calls it a choice. Once this war ends, she can take a bag of cash and disappear. Or, huge plot twist, she can stay and learn the dark art of true power. She asks why he chose her. His answer? Because she never made excuses for her abuser. She owned her fear, and to Leon, that honesty is priceless. Arya chokes up, refusing to do anything illegal. Leon just gives her this crazy, dangerous smirk. His empire runs in the gray areas the cops cannot touch. He's not asking her to pull a trigger. Here is a quiet lesson. Sometimes a single crossroads forces us to decide if we will keep running or finally become the storm. He tells her to just pay attention. Arya is completely speechless. After dinner, Leon holds out his hand for a walk. Before her brain can scream no, she takes it. His grip is a terrifying mix of danger and safety. He leads her to the terrace edge, and suddenly the Mafia boss drops his armor. He reveals he came from the exact same gutter she did. His dad was a monster who completely broke his mother down. At 12 years old, Leon swore he would never be a victim again. Arya is stunned. The flawless suit fades, revealing a kid who clawed his way out of hell by making himself indispensable to the city's most powerful men. He worked, we watched. He waited. Never forget this truth. The tallest empires are often built on the darkest foundations of unimaginable pain. Welcome back to the late shift, guys. You and I know that turning point, right? That exact second you decide to finally push back against the dark. Leon looks at her, his voice a low rumble, and says she is standing at that crossroads. She must choose between staying the helpless prey or becoming an absolute storm. Arya wants to scream that he knows nothing about her trauma, but the brutal truth shuts her up. Maybe being the victim is the only identity she knows how to wear anymore. She whispers that she needs time. Leon backs off, leaving her alone against the glowing skyline. She stays out there freezing until her bones ache before heading back to her room to wait for the dawn. Look, sometimes the absolute hardest prison to escape is the one we build inside our own minds. She lies in bed, tracing lines on the ceiling, trying to imagine a future where she actually matters. It is a crushing thing when you forget how to hope. Suddenly, her phone lights up the dark. A text. 9 a.m. Be ready. She stares at the screen until she is almost crying, then forces her eyes shut. Morning hits fast with a knock at 8, giving her 30 minutes. She throws on old jeans and walks out to find Leon looking totally different. The terrifying mob suit is gone, replaced by dark denim and a leather jacket that makes him look dangerously casual. Down in the underground garage, a stealthy gray sedan waits. Leon takes the wheel, driving through the city's maze like an absolute ghost. It takes a very specific kind of pain to know the dark shadows of the world this intimately. They roll up to a forgotten diner straight out of the 1950s. Leon orders coffee with a terrifyingly normal vibe. When Arya asks why they are here, he slowly stirs his sugar and drops a truth bomb. He needs her to see he is not the monster from her nightmares. She tries to deny it, but he sees right through her. He knows she is constantly bracing for impact, expecting him to snap like Marcus used to. Then he leans in, his voice dropping to a gravelly whisper. He tells her he is actually infinitely worse. Marcus was a pathetic coward lashing out in weak anger. Leon destroys people with cold, calculated precision, but he makes one unbending rule very clear. He only destroys those who truly deserve it. In a world built on endless lies, brutal honesty is the only real comfort we can trust. Let's break this down, guys. Arya is just poking at her food, stomach doing absolute backflips. Leon drops a heavy question out of nowhere, asking who her brother Ethan was before he completely crashed and burned. For a boss like Leon, information is literal cash. He needs to know if this guy is worth the hustle. Arya spills the tragic backstory. A drunk driver took their folks when she was 19, forcing Ethan to work brutal night shifts. But resentment quietly built up. The second she graduated, Ethan checked out, diving headfirst into gambling and cheap booze. When she tried to pull him out, he literally shoved her away. Feeling completely alone, she walked right into the trap of a guy named Marcus. Listen, sometimes people run straight back into toxic situations just because actually doing the work to heal hurts way too much. Guilt is eating her alive right now, whispering she totally failed her brother. But Leon is not having any of it. He straight up tells her she cannot carry Ethan's massive baggage. Having a good heart usually means blaming yourself for someone else's messy mistakes. They drive out to an absolute wasteland of an industrial zone, pulling up to a busted, rusty building. But check this out. Leon punches a code, the heavy steel door groans open, and boom. It is a flawless, high-tech headquarters buzzing with pure energy. Sitting there is Simone, a sharp woman radiating cold, lethal mob energy. She smoothly welcomes Leon back. It just goes to show, the most valuable things we protect are usually hiding right behind the absolute ugliest, most broken down doors. Leon casually calls this setup a legitimate logistics operation. Simone gives a knowing smirk, being the mastermind keeping his shady deals off the radar. She looks at Arya and instantly connects the dots. They are super close to finding Ethan. A rival Mafia crew has him trapped near the river. The enemy is sweating. Realizing the boss has entered the chat, they are panicking, deciding whether to make a deal or dig their own graves. Let them sweat it out, Leon mutters. The vibe back in the car is purely electric. Arya snaps and asks why this kingpin is risking a gang war for a nobody he never met. Honestly, we are all just secretly driven to save strangers because of the tragic ghosts we failed to rescue in our own past. Leon merges into traffic and drops his absolute darkest secret. At 15, he literally tried to take out his own abusive father. Arya is stunned, speechless. Leon describes the terrifying scene with zero emotion. The drunk monster, the plastic bag, the crazy silence. His mother ripped him away and kicked him out just for trying to save her. He ended up with an uncle who taught him the coldest Mafia rule. Violence is not a temper tantrum. It is a calculated tool, and you never shed blood unless it pays off. Leon stares right through her, recognizing that same shattered trauma he lived through. For the first time, Arya stops panicking and feels completely understood by this dangerous guy. Sometimes the most genuine empathy you will ever experience crawls straight out of the darkest, most broken shadows. Back in the garage, Arya quietly thanks him for not treating her like a fragile doll. Leon softens, telling her she is not totally broken, just bent. That is a massive life lesson. There is a huge difference between a completely destroyed spirit and one just bowing to survive a crazy storm. Upstairs, the waiting game is pure torture. Leon locks himself in his office while Arya paces a hole in the floor. By 10 o'clock, he steps out looking like an absolute winner. They tracked Ethan to Pier 17. Arya gets a crazy adrenaline rush and demands to go handle business herself. But boom, the nice guy vanishes. Leon flips into full ruthless boss mode, laying down the absolute law. She stays put. He teased the fighting. He promises to bring her brother back. Some promises are literally forged in pure steel, and he refuses to let her bleed for this. Let's look at this piece by piece, shall we? Arya wanted to lose it, screaming she deserved to be on the front lines of her own family drama. But one glance at Leon's solid jaw told her the argument was totally dead. She faked it, giving him a hollow nod. He knew she was lying, but let it slide. She crashed in her cold bed, wide awake, listening to the heavy pulse of the city. Morning rolled in, looking brutal, with nasty grey rain hammering the glass. Her bones were exhausted, but pure nervous energy had her pacing the room by 6:30. When the clock hit 7, the door swung open and the guy standing there was unrecognizable. The chill dude from the diner was gone. Decked out in dark tactical gear, Leon was a literal walking weapon. He was no longer playing protector. He was the Grim Reaper, and it was time to collect. The menace from earlier vanished, leaving a strangely calm guy behind. He pushed some food at her, insisting the day was going to be an absolute grind. She forced down dry toast while Leon paced around, chugging black coffee and focusing on his screen. The room was suffocating with dread. She asked when it was going down. 3 o'clock, hitting them at dusk. He dropped his phone and glared through her, demanding a promise. She had to stay locked inside this penthouse, ignoring her panic, no matter how long it took. When she challenged him about what happens if he does not survive, his face turned to stone. "David has his orders," he snapped, swearing he would bring Ethan back. She desperately wanted to believe him, but you and I both know the harsh reality of trauma. Trust is an insanely expensive luxury that victims simply cannot afford. She barely whispered an okay. Leon stared at her, trying to permanently memorize a painting he might never see again. And then he was gone. The hours dragged like heavy chains. By 2 o'clock, Arya was so stressed she was practically vibrating. At 2:45, Leon popped back out with 3 absolute units dressed in pure midnight. He shot her one last piercing look. "Stay," he ordered. Then the squad vanished. The silence in the penthouse was instantly deafening. Honestly, she lasted exactly 20 minutes before snapping. She threw on her darkest clothes, snagged a spare phone, and locked onto the location. Pier 17. She knew exactly where that was. Here is a life lesson for you. Sometimes, the absolute most dangerous choice you can make is refusing to sit back while other people bleed for your battles. All she had to do was pull off a massive escape. Standing at the elevator keypad, her heart was hammering. She had watched Leon use it, but missed the numbers. But here is the trick. The older housekeeper used it too, and older folks never trust their memory. Arya went frantic, tearing through the kitchen. 15 painfully slow minutes later, she scored a tiny notebook hidden under some batteries. Boom. Written in perfect cursive were the security digits. She scribbled the numbers on her hand, shaking as she typed them in. The doors slid open, and riding down felt like free-falling into a void. Hitting the garage, she expected armed guards. Instead, she found a silent row of luxury cars. She hopped into a sleek black coupe, the keys literally waiting in the console. Sometimes, life cracks a door open just to test if you have the guts to finally walk through it. The engine roared to life, dragging Arya into a miserable rainstorm. Her heart was beating out of her chest with pure terror. You and I both know exactly how that feels. Love will make you drive straight into a hurricane when someone you care about is on the line. After 30 brutal minutes of traffic, she ditched the car near Pier 17 and pushed forward on foot. The freezing rain soaked her jacket as she ghosted through the shadows. She spotted the rusted warehouse Leon mentioned. A black SUV and a grey van were parked out front. Suddenly, the massive steel doors shrieked open. Out walked Leon, Simone, and a hostage shoved forward at gunpoint. But wait, It was not her brother. Arya felt her stomach drop into the abyss. She flattened herself against the wet brick wall, paralyzed, straining to hear what Leon was whispering to this doomed guy. The hostage shook his head. An absolute rookie mistake. Leon gave a tiny nod, and Simone instantly pistol whipped the guy across the jaw. He slammed into the wet concrete. Hiding in the dark, Arya practically choked on her gasp. Listen, witnessing pure violence leaves a permanent scar on your soul. Leon's icy voice sliced through the rain as he demanded the Bennett boy. The bleeding guard spat curses. Simone geared up for round 2, but Leon crouched down, a metal blade flashing in the dim light. He calmly explained how much it would suck losing his fingers, and how awkward the phone call to his wife would be. Pure fear is the ultimate skeleton key for a locked mouth. The guy turned, chalk white, and spilled everything. He screamed that Volkov moved the boy that morning as insurance, begging for his life, because he was just a clueless security guard. Simone snapped at the bleeding guard, demanding names. The guy coughed up the truth. A heavy hitter named Petrov snatched the boy. Leon just rose to his feet, trading a freezing, silent look with Simone. The heaviest conversations always happen without a single spoken word. Leon ordered the shaking guard to call Petrov on speakerphone. He promised absolute, slow agony if the guy breathed a single warning. The panicked mobster fumbled the phone, dialing while staring at Leon's unyielding blade. 4 brutal rings echoed. When Petrov finally picked up, the guard lied like a pro, claiming the boss needed an instant update because rival gangs were swarming. Look at this, guys. It is a tragic truth how easily betrayal comes when personal survival is the only card you have left to play, Dmitri stammered, begging for their exact location. The agonizing silence that stretched over the speaker was pure torture. Finally, Petrov grunted that they were holed up at an abandoned meatpacking plant on Archer Street. Leon threw a hand signal. The call died before his heavy boot smashed the phone to pieces. He grabbed the guard, demanding a head count. Dmitri sobbed, guessing there were 6 or 7 shooters. Then came the ultimate question. How was the boy? Dmitri admitted they beat the kid half to death looking for hidden cash. A suffocating weight dropped over Arya's heart. A person never truly knows the brutal depths of their own strength until someone they fiercely love is broken. Leon nodded like the Grim Reaper. He ordered Simone to throw the bleeding guard in the back of the van while he dialed a trusted contact to pivot this deadly mission. Leon barked rapid orders into his phone, demanding eyes on the Archer plant and a clean escape route. He hung up, spun around, and froze solid. Arya realized her massive mistake a heartbeat too late. Hyped up on the horrific news about her brother, she had stepped completely out of the shadows and was standing dead center in the pouring rain. Leon's face went from icy control to straight-up nuclear fury. He marched over, demanding to know why she abandoned the safe house. She screamed back that Ethan was her flesh and blood. It is a brutal truth that blind devotion often pushes a good soul into making fatal mistakes. Leon locked a crushing grip on her arm, dragging her to the massive black SUV. He practically spit the words at her, warning that her desperate little hero act was only going to completely destroy his plan and guarantee her a spot in the morgue. Leon shoved the heavy passenger door open and tossed her inside. He snapped that if she caught a bullet, every single thing he sacrificed to protect her meant nothing. The most bitter pill for any protector to swallow is realizing they cannot control the people they want to save. He slammed the door so hard the glass rattled. Arya watched him get into a vicious shouting match with Simone, who kept glaring daggers at her. Soon, Simone stomped off to the van, and Leon slid behind the wheel of the SUV. He slammed on the gas without giving Arya a single look. The air in that cabin was thick with poison. Never forget, weaponized silence is often the heaviest beating a person can take. They finally rolled into a graveyard of rotting brick factories, killing the engine deep in the pitch-black shadows. Leon turned to her, his sharp features devoid of warmth. He laid down the absolute law. She had to lock the doors, stay invisible, and not move a muscle. Arya just nodded. He slapped a crumpled piece of paper in her hand, telling her to track down a guy named Marcus if he was not back in 60 minutes. When she started panicking, he cut her off, but then his frozen mask slipped a fraction as his hand brushed her cheek. It is a beautiful reality that the heaviest armor built for survival instantly melts the second someone touches the one thing they truly cherish. He promised he would come back, but forced her to swear she would run if it went south. She whispered her promise. He vanished into the rain. 10 minutes dragged into 20. Arya sat there locked in the dark SUV, her mind a spinning torture chamber of absolute dread. The storm hammered the roof of the SUV like a machine gun. At the 25-minute mark, a massive gunshot cracked the night in half. Arya forgot how to breathe. A chaotic chorus of rapid-fire rounds and screaming men instantly exploded from the compound. Every fiber of her being wanted to sprint into the war zone. But Leon's warning played on a loop in her head. Keeping a quiet promise while standing still is always 100 times harder than charging recklessly right into the fire. A sickening silence dropped, only to be ripped apart by a massive explosion. A violent orange fireball painted the sky. Suddenly, the stolen burner phone in her pocket started vibrating. An unknown number lit up the glass. She answered, shaking like a leaf. A chilling, perfectly polite male voice greeted her by name, calmly declaring it was time they finally talked. Arya demanded a name. The caller introduced himself as Alexei Volkov, casually dropping the bomb that her brother was sitting right next to him. Her blood turned to ice. Volkov's sounded like he was ordering coffee as he laid out a lethal trade. He wanted to swap her life for Ethan's. You and I must remember something crucial. True monsters always dress up their worst atrocities as totally reasonable business deals. Arya wildly demanded proof. A scuffle echoed through the speaker before Ethan's broken voice shrieked, begging her to run. The phone was ripped away. Volkov rattled off an address on Industrial Boulevard. He gave her 30 minutes to show up alone, or the kid gets a bullet. The line went dead. Arya was frozen in the dark. She wanted to call Leon, but another terrifying wave of automatic gunfire erupted from the plant. Her time was officially up. The devastating reality hit her like a freight train. Leon was bleeding out in a war that she triggered. If she waited around for her bodyguard, Ethan was going home in a body bag. She cranked the engine, her hands locking into a cold focus. The GPS said 22 minutes. She drove that SUV like a maniac, blowing past red lights while the storm tried to drown her. Her universe shrank down to saving the brother who threw his future away for her. Industrial Boulevard was just an endless stretch of rotting warehouses. She parked outside Unit C, her screen lit up with a creepy text. 2 minutes early, very prompt. The heavy steel doors unlocked with a violent clank. Every human's instinct screamed at her to run, but listen to me. True loyalty always means walking straight into the absolute worst fire for your own blood. She stepped right into the nightmare. We all drag our debts around, but the ones you owe to your family are strictly paid out with pieces of your soul. Arya pushed through the metal door, stepping onto the freezing concrete. Harsh industrial lights beat down on Alexei Volkov. He had silver hair, a sharp suit, and a polite smile that hid a totally dead heart. He thanked her for dropping by. Arya did not care. Her eyes locked on Ethan. Her brother was slumped in the shadows, his face smashed into purple ruins. He choked out a warning before a goon kicked him right in the ribs. Arya rushed the floor, screaming at them to back off. Volkov raised a single finger, instantly pausing the beatdown. He circled her like a hungry shark, whispering about her beautiful devotion. But love is a fatal liability in the underworld, and Volkov demanded the real dirt on Leon. Let's look at this piece by piece, shall we? You and I have seen this kind of desperate underworld game before. Volkov paced the damp concrete, his smooth voice echoing. He looked right at the trembling girl and shattered her reality. Her brother's debt meant nothing. In this dark economy, cash is cheap, but leverage is gold. He looked at Arya like she was a shiny toy to use against the big boss. Arya whispered that Leon barely knew she existed. Volkov just laughed. He laid out the terrifying truth. Leon was currently tearing the city apart, risking his syndicate just to keep her breathing. Sometimes the hardest lesson is realizing your worth to someone only when the receipt is printed in blood. Volkov made a quick call. The heavy doors groaned open, and his monsters dragged in a bleeding, shattered Leon. Leon could barely keep his feet. His left arm was hanging at a wrong angle. He locked eyes with Arya, and his hardened mask completely shattered. It was not anger blazing in his eyes. It was raw, devastating grief. He called her a foolish girl, his voice thick with tears he refused to let fall. Volkov just stood there laughing, mocking the weakness that was burying them. The devil laid out his demands. Leave the territory, return the shipments, and pay $200,000. Leon simply asked the price of refusing. Volkov did not blink. He pressed the freezing barrel of his gun flush against Arya's temple. Leon just stared into her terrified eyes. You could see the devastating math processing in his soul. True love is often found in the terrifying willingness to lose absolutely everything so someone else can keep breathing. He offered his own life for theirs. Volkov shook his head, rejecting the sacrifice. But the boss was not finished. The beaten man's voice turned to absolute iron. He laid out a terrifying reality. If they did not walk out alive, a massive file packed with dirty secrets and bank accounts would hit the FBI in exactly 30 minutes. Volkov desperately tried to hold his arrogant smile, calling it a pathetic bluff. The room went deathly quiet. The only sound left was the storm smashing the metal roof. Leon stared right through him, telling the boss to make his call or pull the trigger and find out. Volkov hesitated. The cold steel slipped away from Arya's head. He argued that a leak would destroy Leon too, but Leon had already made his peace. The truest strength we can ever build comes from fully accepting our own ruin before the battle even kicks off. Leon was completely ready to burn, and Volkov wasn't. Picture this freezing warehouse, guys. The air literally tastes like copper and pure regret, and our guy Leon is just standing his ground like an absolute unit. Volkov has a weapon right in his face, warning him he is going to rot. But Leon just stares back with zero panic, dropping the hardest line, not insane, just motivated. Bro literally tells Ethan to run straight to his sister and never look back. Listen, you and I both know this cold truth. Sometimes the truest form of love is just walking away so someone else gets to survive. Arya sees the blood dripping down Leon's face, her heart absolutely shattering into pieces. She promises to come back, but Leon just gives this faint ghost of a smile. He already knows she cannot. They barely make it half a block before Ethan's legs completely give out. dragging them both hard onto the flooded pavement. The storm is absolutely blasting them, but Arya refuses to take the loss. She is literally begging him to move, screaming at him not to give up, because, honestly, true resilience is only born when your body is screaming that the tank is completely empty. She uses every single ounce of her shattered strength to shove him into the passenger seat, totally collapsing behind the wheel, with her hands shaking uncontrollably. She pulls out Leon's waterlogged card and forces the address into the GPS. 12 minutes, she drives like an absolute ghost, blasting blindly through red lights and chasing shadows in the mirror. Ethan is basically fading out in the passenger seat, taking these terrible, shallow breaths. Arya is just praying, begging him to stay awake. They roll up to this super sketchy, faceless brick building in the quiet district, and she starts absolutely hammering on the glass door. Out comes this massive dude, Marcus, covered in brutal scars and looking like a total raid boss. She screams that Leon sent her and that Volkov has him. It really reminds you, does it not? Sometimes our biggest hopes arrive wrapped up in the most terrifying packages. Marcus clocks Ethan's condition in a split second, pulls out his phone, and immediately calls it in. The girl showed up without the boss. He knows instantly that things have gone totally sideways. The call drops with this heavy click, and Marcus just looks at Arya before murmuring for her to come inside. Bro carries Ethan like he weighs nothing at all, dropping him in a back room that smells straight up like cold bleach and bad memories. This veteran doctor woman just starts cutting away Ethan's ruined shirt, no questions asked. Arya is standing there totally paralyzed by guilt until Marcus pulls her aside and demands the full story. She spills everything about the warehouse trap and the blind trade. Marcus just darkens, realizing Leon literally traded his life for hers. We often make totally desperate choices in the dark, hoping for the light, only to watch the shadows deepen. David is going to absolutely lose his mind. Arya is literally begging Marcus to go get him back, but Marcus is totally cold, scrolling his phone. He tells her they do not do rescue missions, but since Leon is a literal genius, he must have a master plan. She is hyperventilating, asking what happens if Volkov just ends him. Marcus looks dead at her and says that would start a full-scale war. He realizes she actually cares about this guy. She remembers Leon looking at her in that warehouse, like he was memorizing her face for the very last time. Marcus tells her she has to follow his orders if she wants Leon breathing. Sitting in the quiet hours of the night is its own special torture, because it forces you to face your deepest regrets completely alone. Arya is just glued to her seat in that creepy sterile room while the doctor works her magic. This girl Elena rolls in like a total phantom, tossing Arya some clean clothes without even speaking. Arya changes like a zombie, just consumed by how badly she messed up. Elena hits her with that absolute stone confidence, saying Leon has survived impossible odds for 15 years and never slips up. But Arya knows the painful truth. He totally slipped up for her. Real vulnerability only happens when we completely drop our shields, fully knowing the terrible cost it might bring. She keeps replaying that brief flash of pure terror in his eyes at the warehouse. Around midnight, the doctor walks out and drops the news. Ethan is going to live. Hearing he is going to make it hits Arya so hard, her knees practically give out from the pure relief. Exhaustion instantly drags her down into a deep sleep, but she wakes up to David Crane looming over her like a shadow. This guy normally looks untouchable, but tonight he looks absolutely wrecked. It is 4 a.m, and he drags her into this cramped office with a face colder than the bitter rain outside. He goes off on her, demanding if she realizes she just nuked months of undercover work. She snaps back that she was saving her brother. Man, sometimes our absolute best and most noble instincts end up causing massive damage to the people trying to protect us. David tells her she forced Li-shun into a totally lethal choice. The absolute tension in this tiny office right now is off the charts. David violently slams his fist on the desk, the sound popping off like a gunshot in the quiet room. He is grinding his teeth, furious that Leon did not just leave her bleeding out back at the restaurant. But we all know Leon sees a spark in her worth saving. Arya quietly asks if they have heard anything, and the guilt is practically eating her alive. David just deflates, telling her it is radio silence. Volkov is keeping Leon locked away to test his bluff about the FBI files, a totally insane gamble Leon only took for her. It is a harsh reality check we all have to face eventually. Saying sorry does not even begin to fix the total wreckage of breaking the rules. David just stares at her, trying to figure out if she has the quiet strength for what comes next. He straight up tells her that in this Mafia underworld, catching feelings is basically handing your enemy a loaded weapon. He slides over this massive file of surveillance photos. They have been trying to lock Volkov up for 18 months, but they need the golden ticket. Proof of a murdered witness locked in Volkov's personal vault. Arya asks what the heck this has to do with her. David drops the bomb. Volkov is going to reach out to test her, and she has to play the terrified pawn. Sometimes, the absolute only way to actually catch a monster is to look him in the eye and willingly step right into his worst trap without ting. So David tells her she is going to wear a hidden wire. Arya is literally frozen, feeling ice water flooding her veins. She has to spy on the exact psychopath who nearly ended her brother. David tells her it is the only way to cage him, and because Volkov is a total arrogant jerk who underestimates women, he will never see the betrayal coming. Arya flashes back to that cold steel gun and Leon bleeding on the floor because of her mistake. She takes a deep breath and agrees to do it. Sitting alone after that, she just buries her face in her hands. She spent her whole life hiding, and now she is walking straight into the fire. You cannot outrun the darkness forever. Eventually, you just have to turn around and throw hands. It is an absolutely unhinged plan, but it is the only way to fix what she broke. At 6 in the morning, Marcus stomps in holding bitter coffee, looking totally grim. Volkov sent a message saying he is dropping Leon at Pier 17 in 2 hours. Arya immediately jumps up, realizing that is where this whole nightmare started. Marcus tells her to stay behind because it is obviously a trap, but Arya is having absolutely none of it. He traded his life for hers. She is not asking for permission to go. Marcus knows David is going to flip, but they head out anyway. They park way out in the distance by the empty pier. The absolute hardest part of any nightmare is that brutal, agonizing silence right before the final hammer drops. Half an hour drags by like an absolute eternity before this black sedan finally rolls up. 2 mob goons drag a guy out and just dump him on the concrete. It is Leon. He looks completely wrecked, arm in a sling, and his face beaten black and blue. Marcus bolts out with his weapon ready, and Arya instantly breaks her prometim, sprinting right behind him. Leon looks at her with these totally exhausted eyes and groans that he told her to stay away. She fires back that she doesn't take orders. Look, we all try to carry our heaviest pain completely alone, constantly pushing away the exact people trying to save us. He leans on Marcus, asking about Ethan, then shuts his eyes. He just needs a doctor and 12 hours of sleep right now. Bro, the doctor just snaps Leon's shoulder back into place with a crunch so loud it would make you sick. Leon does not even flinch. Absolute menace. He sends Arya to a dark room, and she is drowning in guilt. Leon looks dead at her and tells her to take her brother and vanish before the Mafia boss, Volkov, finds them. But Arya stands her ground. She knows he traded his own life for hers. Leon tries to play it cool, claiming it was purely a tactical move, no feelings involved. Yeah, right. We all know he is totally capping. Here is a quick lesson for you. Some lies are so incredibly fragile, they completely shatter the exact second they leave your mouth. You cannot hide your true motives forever. She straight up calls his bluff. She tells him his whole tactical strategy excuse is absolute garbage. She saw the sheer panic in his eyes when she was trapped. Leon finally breaks. He admits that whenever she is involved, he makes reckless, crazy choices that put people 6 feet under. So Arya drops to her knees, looking right into his soul, demanding he train her to ruin Volkov. She is so done being the helpless damsel in distress. Guys. Leon touches her bruised cheek, warning her she is not ready for this dark, twisted Mafia underworld. But she just tells him to make her ready. Honestly, it teaches you something. Real, true strength only shows up when you willingly step right into the blazing fire. Let us unpack this together, because the stakes are suddenly through the roof. Leon finally gives in, but he lays down the law, and she has to follow his exact orders, and if he says run, she runs. He practically swears an oath to completely vaporize Volkov's empire if anyone touches her. For 7 brutal days, Arya goes through a hardcore Mafia crash course. David teaches her how to wear a wire and read micro-expressions, while Marcus drills her on raw survival skills. Meanwhile, her brother Ethan is slowly recovering down the hall, but the silence between them is insanely loud. It is a harsh reality check. We often build massive walls to protect the people we cherish most, completely ignoring how those exact same walls just lock us alone in the dark. Ethan is sitting there drowning in so much guilt that no doctor can fix it. Then, the absolute worst happens. An unknown number pops up, and it is the devil himself. Volkov, the Mafia boss, calls her up, his voice dripping with that fake, oily charm, and actually apologizes. He wants to take her to dinner at Monarch, the most snobby, arrogant restaurant in town. When she asks why, this guy drops the ultimate bait. He promises to totally wipe her brother's massive debt clean if she just gives him some of her time. It is a terrifying truth about human nature, guys. The absolute deadliest traps laid out for us are almost always wrapped in the comforting, beautiful illusion of a completely clean slate. Do not fall for it. Volkov says they need to talk about Varelli. Leon instantly signals Arya to keep the mob boss talking. Volkov puts on this ridiculous act, pretending to be deeply concerned about Leon's violent history and offering her a safe way out. The guy is practically oozing fake empathy. Every single instinct is screaming at her to hang up the phone, but she remembers the evidence and looks at Leon's bruised face. She agrees to meet at 8 o'clock tomorrow. The second the call ends, she starts shaking like crazy, fighting for a single breath of air. Leon tells her she does not have to do this, but she refuses to back down. Sometimes, walking straight into a roaring fire is the only real way to burn away the demons that hold you hostage. Stick with me here, because this is where the tension skyrockets. Arya looks Leon dead in the eye and tells him she is totally done being scared. Leon gives this slow nod and promises that he will be inside that restaurant. She will not see him, but if things go sideways, he will literally burn the entire place down. The next 24 hours are just pure, hardcore prep. They tape a tiny wire to her skin, and Marcus drills her on every single exit strategy. Leon gives her the ultimate psychological cheat code, telling her to play weak and feed Volkov's massive ego. The lesson is simple but powerful. Real courage is not the absence of fear. It is staring your absolute worst nightmare right in the eyes and completely refusing to blink. Leon tells her to act absolutely terrified of him to stroke Volkov's ego. By the time 8 o'clock rolls around, Arya feels like she has aged 10 years in a single day. She puts on this dark, elegant dress Leon picked out, feeling the freezing cold wire taped to her ribs. She steps into the Monarch, and this place is basically a gorgeous, sparkling cage made of crystal chandeliers. Volkov is sitting at a private table, grinning like a predator about to strike. She forces a fake smile, scanning the room. She cannot see Leon anywhere in the crowd, but she can feel his eyes on her. It shows you something profound. Sometimes, true love is just knowing someone is standing right there in the shadows when you walk into the fire. This mob boss actually orders wine, acting like they are just two normal people having a casual dinner. Arya plays her part flawlessly, fake laughing at his terrible jokes while the hidden wire records every single syllable. Finally, Volkov drops the nice guy act. He leans in and tells her Leon is an evil guy who just uses people and throws them away. Then he offers her the ultimate deal, a totally clean slate, wiping her brother's debt forever. All she has to do in return is betray Leon and track his movements. Listen carefully to this life lesson. You always need to beware of the people who offer you salvation in exchange for betrayal. 9 times out of 10, they are usually just handing you a brand new set of heavy chains. You and I are going to look at this together because things just got terrifying. Arya's heart is practically beating out of her chest. She asks the mob boss what happens if she refuses his little deal. Volkov keeps smiling, but his eyes turn totally dead. He smoothly tells her that he cannot guarantee her safety, hinting that Leon's enemies might make a deadly mistake. It is a straight-up death threat wrapped in velvet. She tells him she needs time to think, and barely manages to walk out of there without collapsing. Once she is safe in the car, her phone buzzes. It is a text from Leon telling her she did well and to come home. It reminds us that home is not always a physical place. Sometimes it is just the person waiting in the dark. That single word just hits her right in the soul. Home. Back at the penthouse, the crew is waiting. David isolates the audio from the wire, and it is a massive win. They have him on tape doing witness tampering, and that death threat is totally usable evidence. Leon walks over and pulls her into this gentle hug, even with his bruised ribs. He whispers that her part is officially over, and she does not have to take any more risks. But Arya pulls away. She has spent her entire life locked in cages, treated like some fragile porcelain doll, and she just got a taste of her own strength. She tells him she is staying in the game because once you finally discover your true power, you never let anyone put you back into the dark again. Over the next 3 weeks, Arya literally dances with the devil 4 separate times. Every single meeting is a carefully crafted lie. David monitors the audio, Marcus plots the escapes, and Leon is the ghost hovering in the shadows. She plays the terrified victim perfectly, and Volkov falls for it hook, line, and sinker. He starts spilling major mob secrets, smuggling routes, dirty judges, the whole 9 yards. But then comes the 5th phone call, and everything flips. Volkov tells her he has absolute proof of who Leon really is. He demands she come alone to his private office at 9 o'clock that night. The hard truth about secrets is that the ones we desperately keep to protect people are usually the exact ones that destroy them. Volkov strictly warns her not to tell Leon before hanging up the phone. You and I know that secrets are the heaviest things we can possibly carry. Arya is staring at her phone in absolute shock. This is the exact golden ticket David needs to break into Volkov's fortress and steal the files. But instead of keeping quiet, she runs straight to Leon's study to confess the plan. Leon loses it, pacing the room like a cornered beast. He tells her it is an obvious trap. His office is his home turf, and if things go south, Leon will not be able to save her. But Arya refuses to back down. She needs to know the truth. Sometimes, our desperate obsession with finding the truth makes us completely blind to the blazing fire we are walking into. Guys, listen to this intense standoff. Leon is straight up warning her, saying this guy has caught bodies for way less, and she wants to walk in solo? Insane. But Arya is not backing down. She keeps her voice almost completely deadpan and tells him she will be wearing a wire so he can listen. Leon just stares at her, the tension off the charts. He whispers that she has totally changed. And honestly, real change only happens when we are pushed to the absolute limit. She steps up, saying he taught her how to hold real power instead of just surviving. Leon grips the desk, knuckles white, dropping a massive emotional bomb. If he loses her, he is never forgiving himself. She touches his shoulder, telling him to trust her. Bro looks completely shattered and says it is not fair. What a moment. Leon finally closes his eyes and gives this single, heavy nod. No going rogue, he tells her, keeping it strictly to the game plan. For the next 12 hours, the vibe in that room is pure adrenaline. David drills her on the cover story until she is spitting it back in her sleep, while Marcus teaches her how to pick a window lock, just in case. Leon is pacing the edges like a totally stressed bodyguard. By 8:30, Arya is staring at herself in the mirror. The wire is practically freezing against her skin. She looks like a total boss, but she is terrified. But hey, being scared is not the opposite of being brave. It is what makes you brave in the first place. Leon pops up in the doorway, announcing they have 30 minutes. He shuts the door, and they just stand there in this tiny space. Leon is totally losing his cool, whispering that if this boss even looks at her wrong, he is crashing the party. Arya tries to lighten the mood, joking that his plan is a strategic nightmare. But Leon gently touches her face and drops the heaviest line. She matters way more than any master plan. It really goes to show that true love is the ultimate rebellion in a messed up world. Arya leans into his hand, soaking up one last second of calm before the storm. She whispers that they seriously need to talk about their relationship. But before she can finish, Leon just goes for it and kisses her. It is this wild mix of pure panic and absolute care. They pull apart, breathless, and he literally begs her to come back to him. By 8:50, she gets into the black sedan alone. The hidden earpiece feels like a brick in her ear right now. Leon's voice comes through, promising her she is not walking into this alone. She cannot talk back, but hearing him totally hypes her up. They pull up to Volkov's headquarters, a glass high-rise. You and I both know that extreme wealth is usually just a fancy mask covering up some incredibly ugly secrets. Arya takes the elevator to the 20th floor, her heart hammering. The doors open to a dark reception room. Inside, Volkov is chilling by the window. He spins around with this terrifyingly smooth smile and thanks her for showing up. Arya demands exactly what was promised. He points to a chair and she sits so the wire catches every word. Slowly, he slides this sketchy, dark folder across the massive desk. Volkov leans in and drops the hammer, telling her this folder is exactly what Leon has been hiding. Arya opens it and her jaw hits the floor. We are talking grainy spy photos, massive financial logs, and literal documents with Leon's actual signature on them. Volkov hits her with the fake sympathy, claiming Leon has been a rat for the feds for 6 solid months. He says her brother, the Hole's rescue mission, all of it was an act to use her as bait. The scariest thing about a good lie is that it uses enough truth to make you question your sanity. Arya's head is spinning because those signatures look legit. She shakily asks why he is telling her this. Volkov leans across the desk and says Leon is weaponizing her, but he can offer her real safety away from this crazy Mafia war. Right in her earpiece, Leon is completely freaking out, screaming that half the documents are faked. But here is the thing. Once somebody plants that little seed of doubt, even your best memories start looking like red flags. Arya is flashing back to how conveniently Leon crashed into her life. Was she getting played this entire time? She demands actual, undeniable proof. Volkov gives this creepy smirk, walks over to the wall, and hits a hidden switch. The wood slides back to reveal a massive steel safe. He twists the dial, pulls out a tiny USB drive, and smooth talks her, saying it holds everything, Leon's FBI chats and his dirty records. Her hands are shaking as she grabs the drive and asks what is on it. Volkov goes dark and reveals it is security footage of her brother. Look at this, guys. Volkov's eyes go dead as he drops the ultimate betrayal. He claims Leon knew where Ethan was the entire time. He literally let Volkov's goons beat Ethan for 2 days just so he would be broken enough for Arya to rely on Leon. She feels totally sick and chokes out that he has to be lying. Volkov just sits back and tells her to watch the tape. Listen up, because the worst fears never come from your enemies. They always come from the people you actually trust. Meanwhile, Leon is screaming in her ear to get out of there, but she is completely frozen. Her entire reality is falling apart. She stumbles up on shaky legs, whispering that she has to leave. Volkov casually opens the door, dropping one last warning. She completely collapses into the cold elevator. The USB drive feels like a literal grenade in her pocket. Out on the quiet street, Leon is pacing around the getaway car. He demands to know what happened, and Arya pulls out the drive. She hits him with the accusation, saying the tape proves he let Ethan get totally wrecked just to make her dependent on him. Leon's face drops into a blank stare. Her voice shatters as she admits she does not know what is real anymore. The hardest pill to swallow is that the exact person who pulls you out of the fire can push you right back in. She demands to know if he knew where Ethan was before the raid. The silence is incredibly heavy before Leon drops his flat, terrifying confession. He knew 6 hours early, but waited because the timing was bad. She is sobbing, and he just snaps back. Leon stands his ground with zero apologies, looking her dead in the eye and saying he did what had to be done. Arya feels violently sick, asking if he let her brother take a massive beating just to keep her on a leash. Leon snaps back, claiming he let Ethan face his own messed up choices while he tried to plan a rescue that would not get his entire crew flatlined. Arya lets out this incredibly bitter laugh, realizing the Mafia boss might have been right. Leon is just way better at hiding his villain era. Running away never fixes your problems, though. She hands the drive over. Back at the luxury penthouse, the vibe is toxic. David fires up the laptop, clicks the file, and boom, a massive graveyard of dirty secrets floods the screen. The truth is going to hurt so much. You and I both know that gut-wrenching feeling when the floor just vanishes from under you. David is scrolling through the files, and he mutters that some of this stuff is legit. Leon actually made a deal with the federal agents. Arya's stomach just completely drops out. David points out the timeline, showing this whole operation kicked off 8 months ago. This was always a master plan to wreck Volkov. Her voice is trembling as she says he used her. And from the shadows, Leon just flat out admits it. Arya is staring at the guy Yachu was supposed to be her savior, realizing he is a puppet master. She demands to see the footage. David hits play, and a grainy video pops up. It is the exact warehouse, and there is Ethan, completely battered. Being used always leaves the deepest scars. On the screen, some random thug is absolutely wrecking Ethan's jaw, and Arya physically flinches. The tape skips forward, showing Ethan totally slumped over in a chair. But then, a dark shadow steps right into the camera frame. It is Leon. Arya completely stops breathing. The video shows Leon casually checking Ethan's pulse. Ethan looks up at him with this crazy hope in his eyes. But Leon just shakes his head coldly and walks out. Arya is screaming at him to explain what she just watched. Leon claims he only went in to make sure Ethan would survive until the extraction. She screams that he could have taken him right then. Leon fires right back, saying there were 6 armed guards. Sometimes the heaviest guilt we carry comes from the cold things we do for all the right reasons. Insane. Picture this, guys. Arya is staring at the screen, locked on Leon's unreadable face. This guy manipulated every twisted outcome just to keep her breathing. She remembers the hidden wires, the bitter lies, and the insane games he forced her to play. But his ruthless control is the literal only reason they are alive today. She tells David to play the rest. They hit the jackpot with a final video labeled Insurance. The footage shows Volkov chatting calmly with a stranger before pulling a pistol and pumping 3 bullets into his chest. The timestamp perfectly matches that murdered federal witness. Absolute game over. It just goes to show you a really simple truth. Every corrupt empire built on innocent blood always leaves behind the exact weapon needed to tear the whole thing down. Marcus lets out a massive breath. This footage was Volkov's ultimate insurance policy, a poisoned apple handed right to Arya. David asks why. Arya quickly realizes the sick logic. The Mafia Don banked on her deciding Leon was the true monster of the story. He wanted her to pick the devil she did not know. Then Leon steps up, his deep voice masking a quiet fear, asking who she is going to choose. Arya looks at this complicated guy who saved her, used her, but somehow truly saw her. She compares the broken girl she was 3 weeks ago to the absolute boss standing here, now, holding the fate of an entire criminal empire. She looks him dead in the eye and says she is choosing herself. It is a powerful reminder. True power is simply refusing to play the game on someone else's board. She drops the wire on the heavy glass table, totally done being a pawn. She promises to give David everything to lock Volkov up forever, but after that, she is walking away. She holds Leon's intense gaze and fires back that she will be her own person, not his asset. The silence in the penthouse is absolute. It is the kind of heavy silence that means a whole world is shifting on its axis. David finally clears his throat, announcing they have enough to take Volkov down tonight. Leon never blinks, staring at the woman who just flipped his reality. When David tells Arya she needs protective custody, Leon instantly shuts it down. His voice cuts the air with zero room for debate. She stays right here, and he provides the security. You have to boldly draw your own lines to earn real respect. David reads the dark resolve in Leon's eyes and leaves with Marcus, taking that deadly USB drive. Now, it is just Arya and Leon in the massive penthouse, the city lights glittering below. Leon's voice gets thick with rare emotion. He tells her she could have died tonight. Arya holds her ground, explaining she needed to know what it felt like to be brave, to finally stop fearing Volkov, and even him. Leon's hardened mobster features soften. He pours 2 glasses of burning scotch and hands her one, murmuring that it was not bravery, but a calculated risk. Arya clinks her glass against his. To calculated risks, she replies, and to actually surviving them. They take a drink together. It makes you wonder, how often do we mistakenly label pure survival as real courage when our backs are pressed against the wall? Leon swirls his drink, predicting the feds will drag Volkov from his mansion before sunrise. Then he hits her with an insane plot twist. He offers her something far more dangerous than a cash payout. He wants her in his shadowy empire, not as a delicate bird in a gilded cage, but as an absolute equal. He needs a sharp partner he can actually trust to run operations. He is laying every single card on the table. Arya searches his face for his usual manipulation or a hidden trap, but all she finds is raw, unfiltered honesty. She simply tells him she will think about it. They stand together in a rare, comfortable quiet, high above the restless city. It brings up a really profound realization. The absolute deepest peace in this life usually finds us right after the most brutal wars are finally fought. Fighting massive exhaustion, Arya murmurs she needs to check on Ethan. Leon steps closer, closing the gap between them, and says the kid is already asleep. His voice drops. He admits she absolutely terrified him tonight. His thumb traces her cheek with desperate gentleness. The mob boss tells her he can handle a lot of wild things, but watching her in the crosshairs is not one. Arya gives him a bittersweet smile, warning him he will have a hard time if she sticks around. "I know," he whispers. "Stay, anyway." Arya bridges that final distance and kisses him. It is not some frantic collision like before. This kiss is slow, deep, and anchored in the future. She rests her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. It is a powerful reminder. Even in the absolute darkest nights, you can always find a reason to keep holding on. She tells him she is still angry, her voice packed with pure exhaustion. She is absolutely furious about being used as a pawn in his twisted chess game. Leon nods, completely getting it. They agree to pause their drama until Volkov is dealt with. The very next morning, boom, the feds kick down Volkov's door. Arya stands by the penthouse window, watching the live broadcast. The big bad boss is paraded out in a bright orange jumpsuit, looking entirely powerless. She whispers that it was worth it. Leon stands beside her, nursing a busted arm he refuses to talk about. Over the next 3 months, Arya sits in that cold federal witness box, ripping open her own trauma for the jury. It is brutal. But listen, sometimes the only way to truly bury your worst demons is to drag them kicking and screaming right into the light. The jury takes just 4 hours to slap Volkov with a life sentence. You might think a victory like that brings instant closure, but you and I both know the movies lie about revenge. When the judge drops the hammer, Arya sits frozen, feeling absolutely nothing. No sweet relief, just a heavy, hollow silence. Marcus calls exactly once, drops a rushed apology, and vanishes off the grid forever. Then there is Ethan. He spends 2 agonizing months in a top-tier rehab facility Leon quietly funded. When Ethan finally walks out, the broken boy she knew is gone. A tired, sober Jan stands in his place. He looks at her with eyes full of shame, apologizing for being weak when she needed him most. Arya just looks back at him, completely understanding the painful, messy truth of what real survival actually costs. Arya tells her brother softly that he was drowning. Honestly, they both were. But the beautiful part is, they finally reached the shore. Ethan lives a quiet, honest life now, teaching at a community center. They talk every Sunday, relearning how to be a family. As for Arya, she made her boss move. She took over one of Leon's legitimate import operations. Turns out she has a crazy talent for reading the room. Leon actually hands her the reins and lets her steer. They definitely clash. They get into bitter fights over basics and the razor-thin line between protection and control. But for the first time, she is allowed to make her own mistakes. Here is the ultimate truth we all figure out eventually. Real trust is never built in the safe, easy moments. It is always forged straight in the fire. Flash forward 6 months. The midnight oil burns in Leon's study. Arya leans over a desk, hunting down a hidden loophole in a contract that could have drained millions. Leon watches from the shadows, his eyes unreadable. He murmurs that she is enjoying this. Arya does not flinch. He asks if liking power is a bad thing. She replies that it is simply honest. Leon walks over, close enough for her to feel the heat radiating off him. He sees the absolute shift in her soul. That terrified girl from the restaurant is gone. A fully awake woman stands in her place. He gently tells her he only opened a door. She is the one who boldly walked through it. When his rough hand cradles her cheek, his quiet pride settles deep in her chest. Remember this lesson. True power is never just handed to you. It has to be fiercely claimed. She leans into his hand, finally allowing her heavy armor to drop. What happens now? She asks. Leon does not hesitate. He wants to build a life together, side by side as absolute equals. No more savior and victim dynamic. When she kisses him, the entire world shifts. Gone is the breathless desperation of their past. This kiss is anchored in absolute certainty. It is a conscious choice. Leon rests his forehead against hers, the space between them heavy. He asks her to stay, to make his dark fortress a true home. Because I love you, he confesses. It is raw, stripped of his usual Mafia defenses. He knows he is a dangerous, complicated man, but that is exactly why she loves him. The truth is, real love is rarely a perfect fairy tale. Most of the time, it is simply two heavily flawed souls finally deciding to stop running. Guys, picture this. This wasn't some cheesy romance novel where a knight saves the damsel. This love was cutthroat. It had sharp edges and demanded pure grit just to survive another day. Arya looks Leon dead in the eye and whispers that she is staying. For the very first time, the icy boss completely drops his lethal guard. 2 whole years fly by and everything changes. Listen, if there is one thing to learn here, it is that stepping up when you are terrified is the ultimate power move. The scared girl crying in the bathroom is long gone. Now we see Arya standing in front of a tall mirror, fixing the lapels of a razor-sharp dark suit. She finally realized that true courage is feeling your knees shake and taking the shot. Anyway, she became her own absolute savior. The icy Mafia penthouse didn't even look the same anymore. It was totally transformed into a warm home packed with framed photos, proving these wild lives actually meshed. Elena, the housekeeper, pops in with a smile, saying Mr. Vali is waiting downstairs and to stop stressing over her collar. Arya laughs, knowing the Don can read her mind from a floor away. Look at her in that mirror. She is a top-tier executive, running 3 massive operations and commanding 40 heavy hitters. Always remember, earning your own respect is the greatest victory you can ever achieve. Down in the grand foyer, Leon is waiting in his dark suit, radiating that same dangerous energy. He asks if she is ready, looking at her with pure pride. It is just another day in this insane underworld. Leaving the penthouse, Arya flashes back to that freezing night she made the desperate call to Leon. She was at rock bottom, completely out of options. Looking back at every terrifying leap, she wouldn't change a second. Here is a truth for you. Hitting rock bottom doesn't mean you are weak, and asking for a lifeline doesn't make you a failure. Sometimes, the ones who help you rebuild are the people who saw you fall apart. Leon grabs her hand, his grip steady. He asks what is on her mind. She squeezes his fingers, saying she is thinking about how far they have come. He smirks, warning her they still have a massive climb ahead. She just smiles back. For the first time ever, she is totally hyped for the fight. The steel doors of the elevator slide shut, locking the boss and his queen in their quiet world. As the car drops into the glittering chaos of the city, a wave of peace hits Arya. She stares at their joined hands reflecting in the metal doors, confident she is exactly where she belongs. This is her empire now. She didn't make it to the top just because some overpowered mob boss swooped in to save the day. No way. When the heat was at its worst, she walked right through the fire and dragged herself out. That is the biggest flex anyone can pull off. You cannot just sit around waiting for a hero to show up at the last minute. You have to learn how to save yourself. Once you do that, you become the absolute master of your own fate. And nobody can ever take that crown away from you.